I just randomly pick.
I have a feeling this one's going to
0.75.
be more difficult.
By the way, whoever's watching this, just get it out. We still don't have the studio function. All right, let's start with that. Okay, you ready?
Let's
Yes.
go.
现在共产党内部已经在研究了，美国是一定会脱钩，他们现在已经认为了，他研究4件事儿，你在美国只要敢查封我共产党任何家人的资产，我就把美国人在中共国的投资加在一起，大概7万亿美元，我就给你没收7万亿，大概也有1万多亿的国债，然后再加上投资，然后再加上一些各国之间必然有的银行的业务。7万亿我就给你没收。第二，我准备着跟你开战，开战以后，我能先把你毁灭掉一部分。我怎么打你在亚洲的所有的航空母舰、潜水艇、军事基地，然后我把你整个的美东某一部分我给你干掉，就是说能到美国本土的战争方式，包括了洗死球。第三个，我封了你的所有的这没收的钱。我要把你美国的金融市场用我潜伏的力量，让你内部的行政命令把你整个摧垮。第4条，我一定要让在最关键的时候，我从太空中或用洗死球，还有记住啊，没人谈过这词儿啊，水上无人汽艇和水下无人潜艇，携带着化学武器、生物武器，或者是自杀式的毁灭性武器，全面开始。经济上的毁灭，到你本土的精准的不对称的打击，生化和化学武器，以及在亚洲对你所有的军事基地的毁灭，这是他现在研究的。然后他真的做这种准备，对台湾就不用提了，那几招就一定是封杀天空中的气球、无人潜水艇，进行长距离的密集的导弹攻击，然后内部的卖台贼跪地求饶，请解放军来解放台湾。这些都是可能的，都在考虑范围内啊，反正会很疯狂，一定不会那么简单，所以我都觉得麦肯锡能不能去成啊，这里边都要打问号。
That was a lot of information.
I don't think that was at the 0.75 speed.
Jeez, I was struggling with that one. Who's going first?
Let's go first this time.
All right, baseline. We start with the baseline. It can only get better.
Yeah,
from what
start
I'm
with the
saying,
baseline.
so, I mean, I love you guys. Right, so what I get from it, there was a few things to be honest with you, and it was going too fast, so I probably missed a couple of bits. But the first thing that I got was when he was talking about the sanctions. You know, the US is giving China sanctions, and Chinese saying, well, we're going to do the same basically too. We're going to take money that you've got in China, you know, because there was on about the US are going to take money off the CCP kleptocrats and, you know, the families from the CCP. So China are saying they're going to do the same. To be honest, I have no problem with that. Who do you think you are, taking money off China and then you're going to mourn when they're doing the same to you? So that's kind of fair game, I'd say. Swings and roundabouts. So that kind of makes total sense. And if America start kicking off about that, I think they need to have a look in the mirror. The other thing which they was talking about was basically the war. You know, the potential war that there's going to be. And there was a few things he was mentioning with this war. Now, it's the first time I've heard any talk of unmanned submarines and things like that. Now, this seems to be a trend, you know, with a sky balloon, unmanned spy balloon. Sorry, what am I about sky balloon? It's not going to be a land balloon, is it? So, spy balloon. Now, I've never even heard of an unmanned submarine. But again, this is another military tactic that if I was playing a computer game, I would want to be the CCP right now because I'm going to kick ass. You know what I mean? You're not going to lose no troops. You could probably build that submarine for about 1/10 of the cost as America's paying to build a submarine. You've got no men on it. You're controlling it with probably, you know, but I say a remote control. You probably got a room full of, you know, computers and controls. But I mean, yeah, you've got unmanned aircrafts as well and submarines. And then you've got the spy balloons or whatever you want to call these balloons. I'm just going to call them attack balloons, really, because that's what they are. How do you compete with that? I mean, when all you're shooting down is machinery that just gets built by the same kind of people who are building a lot of our machinery in the military, it's crazy.
They're just busting it out.
Yeah, and you're just busting it out. And it's a really interesting state of affairs, to be honest with you, because I've never known anything like this in warfare apart from sci-fi games that I play. You know, unmanned submarine, the potential of that is significant. There was mention of the traitors kowtowing in Taiwan when they talk about invading Taiwan. And there's already been talk of that. We know about that. We know there's officials in high places in Taiwan that are just folding to the CCP's demands. And that is probably how that invasion is going to plan out. I would say it's not going to be necessarily China being super aggressive. It's going to be the Taiwanese officials corrupt, allowing them entry basically to then take over Taiwan. And then they've got the chip manufacturing facilities and then the full world's in a big pile of voodoo. That's the three elements I got there. The other stuff I missed because it was going too quick. So that's baseline.
Pretty good, especially because there was a lot. Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. Okay, so first of all, the part about the American investments, I think Byron got for the most part. Basically, they're going to sanction the CCP members, so they're going to start taking the investments that are inside of mainland China, which include up to $7 trillion worth of investment. So it's kind of sprinkled throughout different sectors. He talked a lot about how there's probably going to be a potential war with the US as well as with Taiwan. I think there are going to be a couple elements that are contributing that he's mentioned not in this video. There's going to be like a starving off of the island. That's the tactic you usually try to do because they need to import so many things. And then it will probably be an easy cave because there's so many corrupt officials inside of Taiwan. That's my own little part, but that's definitely going to be a contributing factor because if there is an attack on Taiwan, the US for the most part does have the obligation based off of their promises. If they don't keep that promise, there's going to be more complications worldwide. He mentioned that there's going to be explicit attacks on the US. Specifically, he mentioned the East Coast, which makes sense because there's a lot of military bases, nuclear power plants, and he did say that he's going to be targeting specifically the military bases, these Xi dead balloons, which I don't know the Xi Si Huang, this idea of what it really is communicating the dead emperor, the Xi the dead emperor. He mentioned the space war, that there's going to be space war. People think I'm crazy. I'm ready to see the lasers. I think there are going to be multiple elements of war. Deep sea war, up high in the sky war. It's already happening. I mean, we have the possibility of nuclear war, but also just nuclear energy to power certain things, right? And he was also talking about how this might influence McCarthy's ability to go to Taiwan if he will choose to go at all. So this is kind of one of those events that might trigger other world events. And that's what I got.
What parts did we miss?
All right, so I think there's one thing very, very important we missed it. It's not sanction, it's decoupling. It's totally different things. Sanction means like imagine a fight between a couple. Sanctions more like a slap you in the face. All right.
I understand what he was saying. I just used the wrong word to explain it, so it don't really make a difference.
We actually do. The decoupling is basically divorce, right? Think about it. It's been sanctioned the Chinese officials for a while. So many got sanctioned, and then what? Business as usual, right? That means like if decoupling is no more, no game anymore, no turning back, it's divorce, firing, documentation, the asset is split.
I think what he was trying to say is it's going to be tit for tat.
Well, he did say there was the word decouple in the beginning.
He used the word toggle. This is the concept he's been talking about for years. All right, so it's no misunderstanding on that. That's why Xi Jinping is planning for that. Because think about it, if you had just sanctioned whatever, you think Xi Jinping would just start to launch all this war for what? If you still can continue to corrupt Americans. So another thing, that's why he said it. You mentioned a bit more than Byron about the gloom.
Oh, you don't have to rub it in.
Army and all that thing. But Xi Jinping one is basically full on, and they will use everyone the sleeping cells in the U.S. and the West to start to use some policies, that kind of thing to affect the country. And then they will strike the economies to make sure all the economy collapse.
When you say they're going to use political policy, do you mean to harm the internal part of the U.S. or in response to what the CCP is going to be doing?
Let's go back. So basically, he sees all the asset of US in China. That is something I think the US people should be understand that those monies are gone. And then second, he want to attempt to strike or to attack all these carriers in Asia and all these submarine and military base in, like, let's say in Japan, in Korea, and all that. And then they will make sure to aim the US financial market, basically want the US economy to collapse, because Miles also talked about it many times. With what money you pay the US military? US dollar, right? So if the US dollar collapses, that means all the military has nothing to pay them. So who's going to fight a war like that? So the whole thing is going to be a problem. And then using this, can you see that? Executive order.
Internal.
So what he's trying to say is that he said Xi Jinping would want the internal happening in US. Basically, he was trying to say is that the politics might use executive orders. They might use that to create some orders and to create some problems. Sign some crazy shit, and then the whole thing's turning into turmoil.
For me, this is a little bit more difficult than the first one we watched, but I feel like I understand the basic bits of all four sections. I was also confused on the first bit, the financial bit, the decoupling bit. I get that they're seizing American assets that have been invested in China. Makes total sense, whether we want to call that a sanction, a decoupling, or seizure of assets. But yeah, this bit we're on right now, the internal executive order. I understand what an internal executive order is, but I don't understand the reason for it or what it achieves.
Imagine right now he's talking about the sleeping cells, people compromised by the CCP. Maybe they're doing some really like found things, live organ harvesting, pedophilia, all that kind of thing. And those people would do things for Xi. And imagine someone signed an order said, okay, now our military will not respond, will not retaliate. Don't forget who is the commander-in-chief in America, same person. So if that person, we don't fight, we sign an order, because this is like according to the law, then what's gonna happen? Think about it. If all these balloons coming and then the military ordered not to retaliate, it's going to create a big problem.
There's not one specific internal order. It's basically the CCP using their infiltration in not only like the judicial system, the military, all the way through the government and all that kind of thing, using that infiltration to do things that would stop America potentially, in this scenario that you just said, fighting back.
But even create more problems.
So you're using the infiltration that they've got for decades.
And then he said the C-step basically is like just make a nickname for these balloons.
I'm gonna learn some Chinese. You wait till next week, I'll learn some Chinese. I won't say what I already know.
So he would say then Xi will unleash all these cheap balloons and also these drones of manned submarines.
Unmanned,
so those things will just maybe someday show up on the New York City, the Long Island Sound. So then just like, that is gonna be crazy.
That's what I'm saying. There's some nuclear power plants along that Long Island Sound. So
it's scary when you put unmanned in front of anything military. It's scary. Back in the day, we had kamikaze pilots from Japan. Scary, because they may as well have been unmanned, because the kamikaze, they're going to kill themselves. I mean, the US, they've got drones. We've all got drones. We've got attack drones. It's basically big attack drone. Every country's got attack drones. You have a horde of drones, that's going to do some damage.
Because of what you said, the kamikaze and all that was not happening in the US mainland. Think about it, Byron, you said you fight before UFC and all that kind of martial art thing, right? What's really essential bit of a fight is your will to fight. Right?
Well, the most essential bit of a fight is to not get hit. It's not about hitting someone. You've got to have the will to carry on.
Yes,
you've got, if you do get hit, you can't run off.
Imagine you don't have the will to fight. You are very strong, but you just give up. Then you lost. So what Xi Jinping right now, in my personal opinion, is trying everything to do to make sure the American losing the will to fight, to admit, okay, we're done. We lost.
I think that would be difficult. As much as America's got, negative things like every country, their patriotism is amazing. And I don't think that America will give up very easily at all.
But there's a lot of internal turmoil right now. A lot of fighting each other.
but I mean the people in America, especially a lot of them are so patriotic. It's almost unrivaled, and it's not like communist patriotism. It's real, genuine patriotism.
When you having the will to win doesn't mean you will actually win in the end. You're right. So imagine when you're able to fight back in that moment, your government just basically don't have the will to fight, and then you got attacked to the point even you have the will to fight, but they have no chance. That's the problem. That's why he's like a calculation.
But it's very calculated.
CCP actually very good at one thing in China. They're very good at pushing people.
That's exactly what I meant with the American patriotism. It's totally different to communist patriotism. They do it out of fear, whereas the Americans do it out of love for their country and for their fellow man.
No, it's not like it's about the tactic. Like he would push the people, see how much you couldn't take, and then you fight back, and then take a step back, and then they will keep pushing afterward, and then you keep coming back. That's the tactic they use. That's why right now all the things they've been doing is actually they wore you out. That's why you mentioned a very important bit in the beginning about the submarines things, because locals, like the last bit we talked about, very local.
There's a lot more to fight back against these certain tactics. That's why, to try to use the analogy, because I don't want to promote it, but I mean, if I was playing a video game, I would want to be CCP.
When the US fight back, the CCP mostly will act like, I yield. Then normal people will think, okay, now you yield, you cave, and then okay. And after you turn around, they keep fucking coming back, the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever seen that movie Kung Fu Hustle, Byron, by any chance? It's about the guy with the Buddhist palm.
Yes, I've seen it. It's one of my favorite films ever. Love it.
It's a great film, but there's the guy who's the frog guy. When he meets somebody who's gonna defeat him, he faces off the Kung Fu couple,
yep.
And then he takes those flower things, he stabs them with it, and he tries to do that with the main character. And that tactic of like, oh, I yield, and then they just try to keep stabbing you. That's really CCP. That's like how they do it.
Dirty fighting.
So exactly, not just dirtier than dirty. So what CCP trying to do is with the people inside the US, the traders, when you have no money, you need to struggle with your life. The people, you have to find money to buy food, and then now there's all these crazy balloons coming, unarmed submarines showing up in New York. Right?
Happens all at once, people are gonna panic. That's the thing too, is I always worry about the people panicking, because not only do you have to deal with the outside pressure, when people can't psychologically manage themselves, which keep in mind, we're already at a very psychologically imbalanced state in this country, because there's a lot of other things, the pandemic, all of this stuff. And then people start panicking because all this is happening, that's when chaos really ensues. Because that's the unpredictable nature inside. Everybody's on drugs, so much fentanyl coming into the country, people are dying all the time.
Is that fentanyl coming, am I wrong, or is that fentanyl coming from the CCP?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Another great they've got some great tactics. Like, I feel one of their tactics that they started many years ago was getting us to buy all their cheap shit. And we fell for it. We're all buying into it. And it's just another tactic.
That's the evil of communism. They can tap into people's evil side, greed, the communism, and combined with the ancient Chinese wisdom is going to be really devastated. So that's why this is going to be a biggest challenge for human being.
I think this one was a good one. I understand it. So if me, the baseline, can understand this, I think everyone's going to be okay.
You got it.
I got it.